Now, all of the videos we've made so far have been focused on bare root roses, and I've got lots of questions in my inbox about why buying bare root roses is so important. There are many reasons why buying a bare root rose is so much better, not only for the plant, but also for the environment. The rose actually skips a step. Obviously, as I explained in the last video, the roses are field grown and grafted before being lifted, washed, trimmed and packaged into their bare root form. If you buy them now, they're now into the ground, or you're now thinking about putting them into their final pots. If they do miss the bare root rose season and they're then potted into pots at the David Austin Nursery, that's fine, but they're then potted and they're then taken home by yourself, where you can then disturb them. So this particular video is focused on what to do if you end up with a potted rose. For instance, if you have one given to you as a Mother's Day, an Easter gift or something next year, just at the very beginning of the rose season. Now I'm surrounded by some ones that I've treated myself to after a recent visit to the David Austin Rose Garden. I've got down here Charles Darwin, James L. Austin and the very beautiful Tottering by Gently. I bought these in July and they've been waiting here in the vegetable garden until I'm ready to plant them. If you do receive a rose in a pot very, very early on in the season, for instance in March, April or May, or very into the very beginning of June, please be aware the rose has only recently been potted into its recycled green David Austin pot. They're 7 litres, so they really are quite big and they're really quite deep, but the rose hasn't been in there very long. If you do receive a rose at that time of year, my professional advice is to leave it in that pot just as long as you can. Don't be tempted. I know it's incredibly exciting. You want to get it into the ground. You want to plant it. I have a tendency to pop mine away in a corner of the garden, just where I can look after them for several weeks, up to 4 to 5 weeks sometimes, just so I know that they've established themselves into that pot, and the knocking out process, which involves turning them out of that pot, is not going to cause them any further harm. Now these roses are really well established. This one is Charles Darwin. You can see this is a really nice big plant, and I've had this at home for around 3 or 4 months now. And if I turn this rose out, the best way of doing it is take your hand. Now do this very gingerly. I've obviously got very tough hands because I'm always dealing with roses, but there are thorns quite low down. Get your hand around the actual rose, turn it nice and cleanly upside down and tap off the pot. That should come away quite easily. This one is obviously quite well rooted, and there we go. You can see there's a really nice amount of roots there. Now if I was going to plant that into the ground now, I need to very gently tease away these roots, open up this root ball and very carefully place the entire rose into the ground. Same procedure as we talked through when we were planting a bare root rose. You want a nice, really large hole, at least 60 centimetres wide and at least 60 centimetres deep. Same rules apply as well, at least half a bucket of well-rotted organic matter. That's good quality garden, peat-free garden compost, leaf mulch, or at least 3-year-old garden manure. Nice big hole, backfill that, and again, you're talking about maintaining the care of that rose for at least 12 months. It's going to need an awful lot of help. Now, if you get into a situation where you're a bit rough with that plant as it comes out of the pot, and this is where the caution comes very early on in the season, if you turn that out and the soil starts to crumble away, unfortunately you've been a bit too rough with it, or you've moved on it a little bit too quickly. My advice to you is actually pop it into the ground as carefully as you can. Keep that root ball intact and don't let that break away. Those tiny little white roots are what's really drawing up the water and the nutrition into the rose itself. I had a message early on in the season this year from a really lovely follower who I follow and they follow me. She was gifted 2 standard roses at the very beginning of the season by her sister. I can't remember if they were a wedding present or a birthday present, but unfortunately one crumbled away as it was turned out of its pot and went into utter shock. I believe that that follower actually lost that plant, so you do need to be careful about knocking these plants out at the very, very beginning part of the season. It's been an absolute pleasure over the last 7 days. Don't forget you have until midnight tonight to use my exclusive David Austin code, which is North10. That gets you 10% off at the checkout. There are, to my knowledge, no other discount codes available at the moment. So if you're looking at buying some early Christmas presents and getting those to the people that you love before Christmas, now might be the perfect time to do it. That's North10 online at David Austin to get you 10% off all bare root rose orders placed before midnight on the 19th of November and delivered to the UK.